I thought I heard something down here. You know, when I checked the hall just now and saw light spilling under the door, I half expected it to be a cot, overburdening herself with her studies. But no, here you are. May I? I won't ask you how long you've been sitting here, partly because I suspect you've lost track long ago, and partly because the ink on your left hand tells me more than you'd probably like it to. That's 3 different attempts, if I'm reading the smudges correctly. Maybe 4. Oh, please, don't look so embarrassed. There's nothing shameful in struggling with a seal. The witches who never struggle are either extraordinarily gifted, or they haven't yet attempted anything worth the effort. And the spells worth casting, they always push back a little. May I see what you've been working on? I see what you're attempting. The intention is sound. Quite sound, actually. This anchoring line here shows you understand the fundamentals better than you're giving yourself credit for. But here, this is where the seal is losing its structure. Do you see it? Right at the junction. The line curves just slightly, not enough to look wrong to the eye, but enough that when this ink is charged, the seal reads the curve as a boundary rather than a conduit. The magic stops right there, instead of passing through. It isn't a failure of understanding, it's a failure of your wrist, and that is an entirely different thing, far easier to correct. I had a teacher once, long before my time at the Atelier, who told me that the hand and the mind are in constant argument with one another. The mind knows the shape it wants. The hand has its own habits, its own stubbornness. Learning to draw seals is, in many ways, simply the slow work of teaching your hand to listen. He was a rather exasperating man in most other respects, but he wasn't wrong about that. Here, if you'll allow me. Try your best not to grip the pen so tightly. I know it feels more controlled when you do, but tension travels down into the line. Loosen the hold ever so slightly. Yes, like that. Let the pen do a little more of the work. The junction seal has 4 strokes meeting at a single point. Most apprentices treat each stroke as its own task. Start, finish, move on. But they aren't 4 strokes. They're one movement, paused 3 times. The hand needs to remember that. It keeps the flow consistent. It keeps the ink honest. Try again, from the top. Good. That's better already. Do you feel the difference? You do. I can see it in your shoulders. They've come down about 2 inches since you started that stroke. That is always the tell. With apprentices, when something finally clicks, the whole body knows before the mind is caught up. It is very late. The others will be up with the light, and you'll need more than a few hours if you want your hands steady enough to practice tomorrow. Tired hands forget everything we just discussed. Rather quickly, in fact. I speak from experience. There was a period during my own apprenticeship where I was so determined to master a particular class of seals that I worked 3 consecutive nights without sleep. I was utterly convinced that persistence alone would break through whatever wall I'd encountered. By the 4th morning, I couldn't draw a straight line to save myself. My master found me face down over my work table, with ink on my cheek, and said, very calmly, very patiently, "Qifrey, a spell you can cast tomorrow is worth considerably more than one you cannot cast tonight." I've done my best to remember that, with varying degrees of success, I'll admit. But the principle stands. You've made real progress tonight. I want you to know that. Not as an encouragement, but as a fact. What you've drawn in the last few minutes is meaningfully different from what I found when I sat down. The junction is cleaner, the conduit is open. If you ran ink through that seal right now, I believe it would hold. That is not nothing. That is, in fact, quite a lot. Leave the materials as they are. I'll check them again in the morning before lessons, and we can refine from there. There are 1 or 2 small adjustments still worth making, but those are conversations for daylight. It's dreadfully cold near the window in the early hours, in case you find yourself wanting to sit here a little longer before you sleep. You worked hard tonight, harder than you needed to, perhaps, but I understand the feeling. The wanting, the desire to get it right. I would not discourage that in you for anything. I want you to know that I'm very proud of you. But even your brush buddies tuck it out over there on the bed. Go on, why don't you join him? After all, I'm sure he'd appreciate the company. At least try to get a little bit of rest. I'll wake you up in the morning. And I'll try to convince everyone to do a late breakfast so that you can get a little bit more sleep. Call me if you need anything. Sweet dreams.